Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of source material articles, research, community discussions, and turn it into the essential conversation you need to be part of.
Hmm.
Today, we are strapping in for a very specific type of thrill ride, Freida McFadden's The Housemaid series.
Such a fascinating cultural artifact.
Yeah.
It's not just a series of novels. The sources you sent are, well, they're perfect. We've got a detailed reading guide from People magazine, a really rigorous plot analysis, and my favorite, a truly lively Reddit thread.
Oh, that Reddit thread.
Right, it has everything. Passionate fans, the author's most severe critics, all in one place. It's amazing.
That thread is really the heart of this deep dive. So our mission today is, yes, to guide you through the chaos of Millie Calloway's life, the twists, the turns, all the shocking reveals. But more importantly, we are going to explore this massive contradiction at the heart of the whole phenomenon.
I know exactly what you mean.
Right. How can a series that critics frequently dismiss as, simplistic or even mediocre, how can that same series dominate bestseller lists, attract a huge film adaptation, and be the very thing that gets millions of people back into reading?
It's the literary junk food paradox.
Yeah.
And it tells us more about modern consumption habits than almost any Pulitzer Prize winner. It's a real intellectual puzzle, just wrapped in a cheap paperback.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with the source of the stardom. Freida McFadden was, I believe, self-published before her novel The Housemaid went completely viral.
Totally viral. On Book Talk in 2022.
Exactly. And that velocity, the sheer force of reader enthusiasm was so intense that Lionsgate just snapped up the film rights.
And that adaptation is no small thing. We're talking Paul Feig, director of Bridesmaids, and a simple favor. He's attached to direct.
Which is a perfect tonal fit.
It is. And the cast announcements have been huge. Sydney Sweeney as Millie Calloway, Amanda Seyfried as Nina Winchester, Brendan Sklanner as Andrew. It's slated for December 2025.
I'm just genuinely surprised that a Book Talk phenom went straight to such a high-caliber adaptation slate. What does that tell us about the power structure in media right now?
It tells us that Hollywood is paying attention to guaranteed engagement. It doesn't matter if a book is critically lauded. If millions of people are actively demanding and consuming the content, it just minimizes the financial risk.
That's a great point.
And that's our first key insight here. The sources confirm that The Housemaid was originally meant to be a standalone story. It only became a saga, 3 novels, and a short story because of sheer public demand.
So the market dictated the art.
Completely. The readers demanded sequels, so the series was born.
Okay, so let's set the scene for that accidental universe starter, Book 1, The Housemaid. Our protagonist is Millie Calloway. She's an ex-convict, troubled past, you know the type. She needs a fresh start. And she lands a live-in maid job for the incredibly affluent Winchester family. We meet the core trio, Nina, who's glamorous but so volatile, Andrew, handsome tech mogul, and their defiant daughter, Cecilia.
And what defines that first book is just the feeling that things are fundamentally off. Millie sees Nina's erratic, controlling behavior, but the tension really ramps up when she gets a warning from the landscaper, Enzo.
The mysterious landscaper.
Of course, he tells Millie the house is dangerous. And this establishes the essential dynamic of the entire series. Wealthy people hiding truly dark secrets, and Millie, the outsider, getting sucked into all this domestic toxicity and, frankly, surviving through violence.
And speaking of Enzo, he's a recurring character, which brings us to navigating the structure of this saga. It's finished now, right? 4 published works.
Right. If you're going to read this, you need to know the structure. You've got the 3 main novels, The Housemaid, The Housemaid's Secret, and The Housemaid is Watching, and then 1 novella, The Housemaid's Wedding.
So for you, the learner, there are 2 ways to approach this. The release date order is simple. Book 1 from 2022, Book 2 from early 2023, Book 3 from mid-2024, and then the novella in late 2024.
But, and this is a big but, if you want the chronological timeline, which I think is better for the narrative.
It usually is.
Right. Then the novella, The Housemaid's Wedding, is explicitly meant to bridge the gap. You should read it between books 2 and 3, just before Millie and Enzo move to the suburbs.
Got it. Okay, let's quickly summarize the setup for those middle books. The Housemaid's Secret, Book 2. It jumps 4 years ahead. Millie's trying to move on. She's studying social work, but she takes a part-time job for the Garricks.
Another wealthy couple, this time in an Upper West Side penthouse.
Of course.
And the danger here centers on the billionaire Douglas Garrick and his supposedly unwell hidden wife, Wendy. Millie, using her new social work instincts, starts noticing unsettling details, signs of blood, crying. She suspects abuse.
And she decides to intervene.
She does, and that leads to more dramatic, shocking twists involving a dark secret hidden in the walls. And critically, Enzo returns here. He's her friend, her confidant, and that really solidifies their partnership.
Then the novella, The Housemaid's Wedding, is exactly what it sounds like. It's their wedding day.
A short, tense thriller on their wedding day. Threatening calls from her past. Joyful occasion. Meet immediate, deadly danger.
A classic trope. And that brings us to the core tension of this deep dive. The great debate. Why are these books, despite all the serious criticism, so wildly successful?
This is where it gets fun.
It really is, because that Reddit thread we pulled from is split right down the middle. You have these highly informed people articulating why they love the books because of their flaws.
It's fascinating. Let's start with the critical viewpoint, though, which is consistently harsh. Reviewers frequently call the writing style sophomoric, simplistic, mediocre.
I saw one comment that said, like, a teenager wrote it.
Exactly. And the characters are often called unlikable, shallowly drawn, or just outright stupid. Especially the female protagonists, who seem to... they pile up. The stories are called predictable, derivative, formulaic. There are even accusations of borrowing heavily from other domestic thrillers, like The Last Mrs. Parrish or The Turn of the Key.
One source pointed out a common sloppy trick the author uses to create fake twists, like calling a character by one name and then revealing it's actually their middle name chapters later.
The nickname trick.
Wait, can you elaborate on that? Give us an example of how that mechanism fails the reader and just frustrates critics.
Absolutely. It's a cheap way to generate retroactive surprise. For instance, the author might introduce a villain named Sarah throughout the first half of the book, building dread around that identity.
Okay.
Then in the final acts, a character gasps, but her real name is Jessica and she goes by her middle name, Sarah. It's structurally messy because the revelation has zero bearing on the plot or the character's actions. It exists purely to make the reader feel temporarily surprised.
So it's not a real twist.
It's a linguistic misdirection, not a genuine plot twist rooted in behavior.
That completely shifts the perspective. If the technical quality is this widely criticized, it just circles us back to the million-dollar question. Why are they selling millions? This is where the consumer viewpoint, what we're calling the palate cleanser camp, gives us the answer.
Exactly. The core value of these books is their function, not their literary achievement. They are described as the antidote to a reading slump. Readers call them easy to fly through, requiring zero brain power, and crucially, they offer a feeling of accomplishment. You can finish one in a day or two.
This leads to these incredible, almost affectionate metaphors for consumption. We saw literary candy, popcorn thrillers, junk food.
Lifetime movies, or my favorite, the book equivalent of a guilty pleasure reality show.
And this framing embraces the low quality as a feature, not a bug. They are lean-out content, not lean-in.
Can you break that down? Lean in versus lean out?
Sure. Lean-in content is when you read a literary novel with a pencil. You're focused, trying to catch every nuance. Lean-out content, like The Housemaid, lets the reader turn off their critical filter. It's a truly passive, almost meditative form of entertainment.
But is it fair to call something that gets millions of people reading, especially people returning to the habit, junk? Doesn't that diminish its massive functional value in the literary ecosystem?
That's the nuance the critics often miss. For the consumer, the predictability, which is a criticism, is actually a source of comfort. One comment described it as, it's like listening to the same song on repeat. You know the beat drop is coming, and that's the satisfaction.
You're guaranteed a familiar formula, a big twist, and a quick resolution. It's a dopamine hit delivered right on time.
We see comments from people who say they listen to the audiobook while cleaning or exercising, or they read them before bed because they just don't want to critically think after a long day. They fill this very specific, high-demand niche.
And let's not overlook accessibility. The sources mention they're often free or cheap on platforms like Kindle Unlimited, which makes them a really low-commitment read.
Right. Perfect for someone new to reading or coming back to it.
And several sources noted that McFadden's books successfully got them reading again after decades-long breaks. That functional value, as you said, is enormous, regardless of what critics think.
It provides the required entertainment fix. Okay, let's jump into the final book, The Housemaid is Watching, which provides a perfect, if messy, example of how these big, twisty narratives wrap up a saga that was never meant to be.
Right, so this one takes place about 13 to 15 years later. Millie and Enzo are married. They have two kids, Ada, who's 11, and Nico, who's 9, and they've moved to a quiet Long Island suburb.
A classic thriller setup. But the suburbs are never quiet in this universe.
Never. The tension here revolves around their new neighbors. You've got the flirtatious Suzette and her rich husband, Jonathan Lowell, their suspicious maid, Marta, and of course Janice, the cranky, judgmental neighbor who is basically the neighborhood surveillance system.
And the central event is the murder of Jonathan Lowell, found with his throat slit.
And Enzo quickly becomes the prime suspect. Janice, the watcher, spots him near the house, and police find blood on his hand and the murder weapon in their house later on.
So Enzo confesses, right, to protect his family. And here's that great Easter egg for fans of the first book. Cecilia Winchester, Nina's daughter, returns.
Now an adult. And she's Enzo's public defender. A nice little nod to Millie's past.
But the twist keeps turning. The true initial killer is revealed to be Ada, the 11-year-old daughter.
Which is a lot. And the motive. Jonathan had been grooming Nico in a hidden room under the stairs, using a camera to watch him. Ada finds blood-soaked sheets in there, implying Jonathan was connected to a missing child, and she stabs him in self-defense.
Wow. That is a lot of narrative gymnastics for one suburban block party. It sounds like the author threw every possible dramatic twist, grooming, surveillance, child killer, hidden rooms, into a single book.
That's precisely the critique in our sources. The plot becomes so overloaded that logic just flies out the window. Like, why would this meticulous criminal leave freshly blood-soaked sheets just sitting there for an 11-year-old to find?
The characters have to act stupidly just to sustain the twist.
Exactly. And then Millie, ever the protector, blackmails Suzette, who knew about the hidden room, into confessing to the murder herself.
So we get a resolution. Ada and Enzo are safe.
But wait. Because this is a McFadden book, there is one final, almost unbelievable layer in the epilogue.
Oh, no.
Yes. The analysis points out that the real killer was Marta, the Lowell's maid.
Yeah.
She slit Jonathan's throat when he lunged at her while she was trying to steal jewelry.
You're kidding. So after all that emotional trauma, the whole thing was actually about a maid trying to steal some diamonds.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And this structural choice led to the most disappointment. The final reveal, Marta, was just ineffective. She was too removed from the family drama for the twist to land. It just felt tacked on.
Considering the first two were massive hits, how did critics and fans react to this final, maybe too complicated installment?
The reviews were decidedly mixed. Critics called it a slog and boring. One analysis highlights that the story lacked that iconic, dumb, murdering queen version of Millie that fans loved.
By turning her into a suburban mom, the fun, high-octane escapism was lost.
Exactly. The plot points were messy, and the need for a final twist just undermined the emotional stakes that were built up with Ada's confession.
So in synthesizing all of this, we realize the Freida McFadden phenomenon. It isn't about traditional literary quality. It's about escapism, accessibility, and the reliable delivery of a high-octane plot.
A massive hit of dopamine through twists, regardless of how plausible they are.
And understanding this is really key to understanding modern reading habits. There's this huge demand for what we call lean-out content. After a long day, readers are actively choosing entertainment that requires minimal effort.
They're choosing low-stakes fun.
It's the literary equivalent of binge-watching comfort TV. It's predictable, it's dramatic, and you know the payoff is coming.
Exactly. But let's end with a final provocative thought that ties this whole stack of sources together. The central conflict of the housemaid is watching involves pervasive, judgmental surveillance, Janice watching, the hidden camera.
The constant fear of eyes.
Right. So given that the entire success of this series, from self-publish to major film deal, relies entirely on the watchful eye and viral amplification of communities like Book Talk, is the true accidental theme of this series not murder, but the overwhelming intrusive power of being watched and judged by the community, both inside and outside the story.
That gives me something genuinely substantial to think about next time I'm scrolling the bestseller list. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.